If you had mentioned my name on the streets of London in the 1930s, you would not have been met with admiration, but with ridicule. At that time, I was seen as a failed political gambler, a man obsessed with war, endlessly warning about the Nazi threat, while everyone else clung to dreams of peace. People were exhausted by the scars of the last Great War. They preferred to believe the world had learned its lesson, rather than accept that another storm was gathering, and I, an aging, overweight man with a cigar in hand, and a fondness for whiskey, already past 60, and once predicted by doctors not to live this long, would somehow become the final hope of the British Empire. Looking back, my life has been more dramatic than any novel. So much so that even I sometimes wonder whether it was truly fate at work. I was born in 1874 at Blenheim Palace, a grand estate that stood as a monument to glory, gifted to my ancestors in recognition of their military achievements. The walls were adorned with paintings of victory, and the halls echoed with the weight of history. From the moment I entered the world, I was placed within a narrative of honor and duty, yet that grandeur did not bring warmth. My father, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, was consumed by politics and power. My mother, a celebrated American socialite, belonged to a world of banquets and high society. To them, I was less a child to be nurtured than an obligation to be managed. My childhood was not a happy one. Loneliness, repression, and a quiet sense of neglect shaped my early character. I was sent to boarding school, where I was neither the brightest nor the most obedient student. At Harrow, I consistently failed mathematics and Latin. My report cards were filled with disappointment. Teachers regarded me as dull, lazy, and lacking promise, as though I were destined for mediocrity, but they failed to see the fire within me, a stubborn, unyielding force that refused to bow. Each failure only strengthened my resolve. Once, after being beaten by an older student until my face was bloodied, I did not cry. Instead, I spat out blood, looked him in the eye, and said words I would never forget. You can break my face, but you cannot break my mouth. In that moment, I understood something fundamental. Even if I could not win every battle, I would never surrender. That stubbornness would one day become my greatest weapon against far greater enemies. My entry into the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst was far from easy. I failed the entrance exam twice and was nearly denied altogether. Only on my third attempt did I succeed. That experience taught me that life rarely grants opportunities freely, and when it does, one must seize them with everything one has. After graduating, I did not settle for a quiet military career. I craved action, danger, and the kind of life that made one feel truly alive. I chased gunfire across the globe. In the jungles of Cuba, I first encountered cigars, and their rich aroma captivated me. They would remain my lifelong companion. What I often jokingly called my intellectual fuel. In India, Sudan, and South Africa, I witnessed both the expansion of empire and the brutality of war. During the Boer War in South Africa, I was captured and held in a prisoner of war camp. It was a suffocating existence. Beyond the barbed wire lay uncertainty, and within it, despair. But I was never one to wait passively. One night, I scaled the wall and escaped into the wilderness. Alone, without a map or supplies, I walked for days, surviving on river water and wild fruit, evading capture, enduring fear and isolation. It was not only a test of endurance, but of will. When I finally returned to England, I was hailed as a hero. It was then I realized that the pen could be as powerful as the sword. I began to write, turning my experiences into stories, and gradually stepped onto the political stage. Yet politics proved far more treacherous than the battlefield. During the First World War, I served as First Lord of the Admiralty, responsible for major strategic decisions. With confidence, I championed the Gallipoli campaign, believing it could alter the course of the war. Instead, it ended in disaster, with immense casualties and national outrage. Almost overnight, I went from a figure of promise to a symbol of failure. I was forced to resign. My reputation shattered. The years that followed became known as my wilderness years. I retreated from the center of power, spending long periods in the countryside. I wrote and painted, using both as a refuge from disappointment and isolation. Yet even in retreat, I watched Europe closely. I saw Germany rising under a man named Adolf Hitler, and I recognized the danger in his ideology and ambition. I spoke out repeatedly in Parliament, warning that this wolf was growing hungrier by the day. But my warnings were ignored, even mocked. I was labeled a warmonger, a relic of the past who could not adapt to a new era of peace. Standing before indifferent or hostile audiences, I grew only more certain. I knew the storm was coming, and when it did, the truth would be undeniable. In 1940, that storm arrived. Europe collapsed one nation after another, and the illusion of peace shattered. At the nation's darkest hour, I was called back to lead as Prime Minister. I was 65 years old, an age when many would retire. But instead, I was tasked with carrying the fate of a nation. I stood before Parliament and declared, I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. The evacuation of Dunkirk was a miracle born of desperation. I ordered every available vessel, warships, fishing boats, yachts, merchant ships, to cross the channel and bring our stranded soldiers home. It was a race against time, a testament to national will. As London burned under the Blitz, I did not hide in bunkers. I walked among the ruins, standing with ordinary citizens. The cigar in my hand could not conceal my exhaustion, but it became a symbol of defiance, of endurance. When asked whether we would consider surrender, my answer was unwavering. We shall never surrender. It was not merely rhetoric. It was conviction. I worked tirelessly to bring the United States into the war, forging a close partnership with Franklin Roosevelt, while also forming an uneasy alliance with Joseph Stalin. We were vastly different men, bound together by necessity, reshaping the world in the process. When the war finally ended, victory belonged to Britain and the Allied powers. Yet fate, in its irony, had one more turn. In the 1945 election, the people chose a different path. They needed reconstruction and social reform, not a wartime leader. I lost my position as Prime Minister, but I felt no bitterness. The nation's needs had changed, and my role had been fulfilled. In my later years, I turned to writing, recording the history I had lived through. For this, I was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature, a different kind of recognition. Of course, criticism followed me as well. Some condemned my views on empire, others my response to the famine in India. These controversies cannot be erased. They are part of the complexity of my life. The sunset of the British Empire was inevitable. I could not prevent its decline, but I ensured that it did not fall in humiliation, but in resistance and dignity. If my life holds any meaning, it lies in this, that in the darkest hour, I did not retreat. Instead, I lit a flame, small perhaps, but enough for a nation to see a path forward.